before all of creation, all that I see. You stood alone in your glory, eternally. Then with a word you created galaxies formed at your feet. You're the highest of all, you're as high as can be. Glorified on the throne, give praise to the King. All of heaven bows down in worship to thee, Lord. You are, O Lord, by far highest of all. Who, Lord, can fathom your power, mercy and grace, raining your blessings upon us all of our days. Love beyond all understanding, humbly we offer our praise. You're the highest of all, you're as high as can be. Glorified on the throne, give praise to the King. All of heaven bows down in worship to thee, Lord. You are, O Lord, by far. You're the highest of all, you're as high as can be. Glorified on the throne, give praise to the King. All of heaven bows down in worship to thee, Lord. You are, O Lord, by far highest of all. Yes, Lord, you are highest of all. There's a place where mercy reigns and never dies. There's a place where streams of praise flow deep and wide. Where all the love I've ever found comes like a flood, comes flowing down. At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in all of you, in all of you. Where your love ran red and my sin washed white, I owe all to you, I owe all to you, Jesus. There's a place he dwells in the presence of his people. So with one voice we'll sing to the Lord, and with one voice we'll lift out his word, till the whole earth sees the Redeemer has come, for he dwells in the presence of his people. For he dwells in the presence of his people. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be accepted in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer.
to reschedule that. So the Comptons have children literally all around the world, and they're trying to coordinate all the children coming in. It's a large and close and loving family. As soon as we have some good information, we'll share that with you. And we also mentioned that we just got word yesterday that Cole Stewart's mother, Pat Rice, also passed. And of course, she's been home under hospice care for several days. So let's keep that family in our prayers as well. Monday night, we'll be having Monday night for the Master, 6 to 8. Dinner is provided. We have a few other jobs, but that's primarily to prepare for Dorcas Day, which is coming May the 3rd. And you have details about that in your announcements for tonight about both events. So we don't want to mention that to you. Senior banquet coming up on May the 4th. And that's after morning worship. And so we don't want to mention that to you as well. There's a men's prayer breakfast scheduled for the 10th, serving by sewing. Farewell Finger Food Fellowship on the 18th of May for Drew and Shelley and Lily Beth Binkley. That's after PM services. And then there are other events following that. Summer's coming up quickly. Let's not stop praying for our youth interns. We have Michael Horgan back this year, and Jenny Moran. We're looking forward to a wonderful summer. At this time, let's lift our voices together and sing praise to God.
We're going to do one song. It's number 843 in the book, As the Deer Pants for the Water. We'll do all three verses. As the deer panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You're my friend and you are my brother, even though you are a king. I love you more than any other, so much more than anything. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. I want you more than gold or silver, only you can satisfy. You alone are the real joy giver and the apple of my eye. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee.
You know, tonight as we go to prayer, let's have a special prayer for those that are transitioning in careers and losing jobs and getting new jobs and changing locations and moving. A few hours ago, I found out I might be in that category. Don't know, but let's pray. Dear God, I ask that you be with us tonight as we study your word, as we open it. God, I ask that you open our hearts, Father, that we can see your will in our life. So many things happen to people. People make plans. They think it's never going to happen to them. But change happens to all of us. And we know that with the new government coming in and new initiatives, that there's a lot of change happening in people's lives. And it's very upsetting. It feels like things are coming to an end. But you, God, you are eternal. You don't come to an end. I just ask that you provide strength to all those people that are feeling uncertain and suffering. Give them your peace. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Love you, brother.
Love you.
I can't believe this.
Harold.
He goes, have fun fixing the bench or something.
Or something. That's funny. I'm just waiting on him to close the doors. Which book? Zechariah. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. In case you forgot, we are studying Zechariah. And tonight we're on chapter 8. Last week, Philip taught for us. Oh, and you know, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to offer it up to everyone here. Both Philip and I will be out of town next week. So if there's any volunteers who would like to sub for us next week, chapter 9, just let Philip or I know. I'm looking at you, Clay. Kidding. Okay. So, who's Zechariah's contemporary? I heard Robert say it. Let's hear somebody else say it, other than Robert. Who's that? Eddie said it. Haggai. Haggai is Zechariah's contemporary, and as you know, Philip taught Haggai at the beginning of this class. So last week we went over chapter 7, and if you remember, in that chapter, God was recounting all the things they should have been doing, the things that they didn't do, and as a result, they lost possession of the land. He asked them a question about feasts. Were you really feasting for me, or were you feasting for fasting? Were you fasting for me, No, you're really fasting for yourself. And one of the last things he says in chapter 7, verse 14, he says, "But I scattered them with a storm wind among all the nations whom they have not known. Thus the land is desolated behind them, so that no one went back and forth, for they made the pleasant land desolate." Excuse me. So chapter 7, he ends with that. It's kind of some negativity, but we're going to move into chapter 8. And as usual, we'll read that now. We're going to read the entire chapter, all 23 verses. Then the word of Yahweh of hosts came, saying, "Thus says Yahweh of hosts, I am exceedingly jealous for Zion. Yes, with great wrath I am jealous for her. Thus says Yahweh, I will return to Zion, and I will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Then Jerusalem will be called the city of truth, and the mountain of Yahweh of hosts will be called the holy mountain. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, old men and old women will again sit in the streets of Jerusalem, each man with his staff in his hand, because of age. And the streets of this city will be filled with boys and girls playing in its streets. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, if it is too difficult in the sight of the remnant of this people in those days, will it also be too difficult in my sight, declares Yahweh of hosts? Thus says Yahweh of hosts, behold, I am going to save my people from the land of the east and from the land of the west. And I will bring them back, and they will live in the midst of Jerusalem. And they will be my people, and I will be their God in truth and righteousness. And thus says Yahweh of hosts, let your hands be strong, you who are listening in these days to these words from the mouth of the prophets, those who speak in the day that the foundation of the house of Yahweh of hosts was laid, to the end that the temple might be built. For behold, before those days, there was no wage for man or any wage for animal. And for him who went out or came in, there was no peace because of his enemies. And I set all men against one another. But now I will not treat the remnant of this people as in the former days, declares Yahweh of hosts. For there will be peace for the seed, the vine will yield its fruit, the land will yield its produce, and the heavens will give their due. And I will cause the remnant of this people to inherit all these things. And it will come about that just as you were a curse among the nations, O house of Judah and house of Israel, so I will save you, that you may become a blessing. Do not fear, let your hands be strong. For thus says Yahweh of hosts, just as I purposed to do harm to you when your fathers provoked me to wrath, says Yahweh of hosts, and I have not relented, so I have again purposed in these days to do good to Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Do not fear. These are the things which you should do. Speak the truth to one another, judge with truth and judgment, and judgment for peace in your gates. Also let none of you devise evil in your heart against another, and do not love perjury, for all these are what I hate, declares Yahweh. Then the word of Yahweh of hosts came to me, saying, thus says Yahweh of hosts, the fast of the 4th, the fast of the 5th, the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th months will become joy, gladness, and cheerful feasts for the house of Judah. So love truth and peace. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, it will yet be that peoples will come, even the inhabitants of many cities, and the inhabitants of one will go to another, saying, let us go at once to entreat the favor of Yahweh, and to seek Yahweh of hosts. I will also go. So many peoples and mighty nations will come to seek Yahweh of hosts in Jerusalem and to entreat the favor of Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, in those days 10 men from all the nations will grasp the garment of a Jew, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Okay, so we have basically like the other side of the coin from this chapter from the previous chapter. Because in the previous chapter, as I mentioned, it was, you guys did wrong, I punished you as a result of it. But in this chapter, he talks about what he's going to do. But I do have some questions, and that is at the very beginning of the chapter. In verse 2, it says, thus says Yahweh of hosts, I am exceedingly jealous for Zion. Yes, with great wrath I am jealous for her. So I have a question for you all. I thought jealousy was a sinful behavior or sinful emotion. What do you guys think? Because the New Testament actually talks quite a bit about jealousy. Any thoughts?
When we hear, God hates this thing, hates that thing, it's a similar type of use of a word, which it's not like being jealous in a sinful way, I suppose. It's more like, I want you to be this way, and so it's used in a different manner, is what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Just like hate is used in a different way in church history.
Margaret?
I agree with Robert because I'm thinking God is so awesome. He's so deep. Everything we feel, God feels so much more deeply. And knowing that He's the living God, and when someone's worshiping something made with hands, it hurts Him. We can hurt Him with our actions. And I agree with Robert that it's a different way that He's just trying to tell us. How do I say? When you know who you are and who you are, but you don't want to tell them. And God's trying to tell us you're hurt people.
Okay. Barry, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, read the book of Hosea. The whole book of Hosea is not jealous because his people have the benefit of him and plays that out. And in the life of the prophet, he marries a prostitute and then claims her for that life, and then she goes back into that life and answers claim her. Even again, I think in chapter 11, where God is speaking as a parent, not as a husband, but he's still jealous. I'm the one who taught you to walk. I'm the one who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. I'm the one who fed you. I've been over to feed you. I'm the one who took care of you. But you keep going to the Baals. And God is so hurt and so angry and says to himself, how can I give you up? My heart is turned over within me. None of that's sinful. Those are the real emotions that God is feeling. I don't have my Hebrew text with me. But if God is feeling it, it's not sinful because none of the motivations are sinful. And I think if you want to see in the raw element what he means in these opening verses, read Hosea 11. Read the whole book of Hosea.
Yeah, who's Shelley?
I think there's also a tendency to conflate jealousy with envy, and it has some other definitions too. I would say envy is sinful, but envy is wishing that you had something that someone else has. And, if God's being envious, it's over something that is His. I'm looking at the Oxford Dictionary definition here, and envy is the top result for what jealousy means, but it also means feeling or showing suspicion of someone's unfaithfulness in a relationship, and it also means fiercely protective or vigilant of one's rights or possessions. So I think those two definitions go more for what God is feeling when He says He's jealous. It's something that rightfully belongs to Him that has been taken away from Him as quite unfaithfulness.
God said he was jealous when he gave the Ten Commandments. I mean, it's there included in the Ten Commandments in Exodus chapter 20.
Yeah, we're gonna look at that. So we'll talk about all those things. And yeah, Hosea, I always felt bad for him because, like I said, he has to marry this prostitute, and he has children, and God tells him to name the kid, not your kid. So you have to think to yourself, well, so is this my kid or not?
Yeah, and I think I think it depends on whose hands the jealousy is in. And there's various words in the Bible that's used that way. The Bible says, covet earnestly the best gifts. The word covet means to lust on. Well, we use lust as a negative word, but again, lust, covet, desire, in the Greek is the same term. So it kind of depends on whose hand the word is actually in.
So I do want to look at some verses in the New Testament because I do hear people say, well, God can't be jealous because jealousy is sinful. So I'll look at Galatians 5:19-20 because here Paul lays out the deeds of the flesh. I'm going to read them. Verse 19, now the deeds of the flesh are evident, which are immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmities, strife, jealousy, outbursts of anger, disputes, dissensions, factions, envying, drunkenness, carousing, and things like these, of which I forewarn you, just as I have forewarned you, that those who practice such shall not inherit the kingdom of God. So jealousy is listed there. And in James, I won't flip there, but James in chapter 3, he says, if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. And in verse 14, he says, for where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder in every vile practice. And in Exodus 34, which Barry already mentioned, God says, for you shall not worship any other God, because Yahweh, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. So my question again is, how can God be jealous when jealousy is listed here as a deed of the flesh, but yet God says that his name is a jealous God? And I think we've kind of answered it. Part of it lies in the answer lies in the definition of the word. Because according to the Merriam-Webster.com, jealous means to be hostile toward a rival or one believed to enjoy an advantage. Secondly, it's intolerant of rivalry or unfaithfulness. So based on this definition, jealousy can be good or bad, and depending on how it's applied. As Christians, we're never to be hostile toward a rival or one believed to enjoy an advantage. Because Jesus told us, he said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. In the same way, God, however, should absolutely be intolerant of rivalry or unfaithfulness. Because I think it was already mentioned, God has everything. He is the creator of life, the sustainer of life. Everything we have is from him. So, just as Barry pointed out from Hosea, he absolutely should be intolerant of rivalry or unfaithfulness because he gave us everything. And just to use a more understandable definition, if I'm talking to Megan Hughes and Amy sees me, Amy shouldn't get jealous. We're having a conversation. Now, if Amy sees me talking to Megan and I am overtly flirting with her, should Amy be jealous? Absolutely, because I'm engaging in a behavior with her that is exclusively reserved for Amy, right? So in that case, she has a right to be jealous. So in God's case, he absolutely has a right to be jealous, because if we are, and in the example of Hosea that Barry used, if you're going after the Baals, you should be going after one God, Yahweh God, because there are no Baals, really. Okay. I think we hit that enough. So going back to Zechariah, chapter 8, verse 3, it says, thus says Yahweh, I will return to Zion, and I will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Then Jerusalem will be called the city of truth, and the mountain of Yahweh of hosts will be called the holy mountain. Do you guys remember when Jesus was talking to the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman? Do you guys remember what she asked him? Right when she goes, sir, I perceive you're a prophet. And then she asks him a question. Remember what the question was? Barry said it. Where's the right place to worship? My answer said we should worship on this mountain, which I think it was Mount Gerizim. But saying to Jesus, but you say you should worship in Jerusalem. What was Jesus' reply to that question?
There will come a time it wouldn't make a difference where you worship.
Yeah. There will come a time where it won't matter if you're worshiping in either location. So, yep, the time is coming. It is now. Yes, he absolutely says that. So, my question here is, it says Jerusalem will be called, Jerusalem will be called the city of truth, and the mountain of Yahweh of hosts will be called the holy mountain. But I thought, as we just pointed out, it doesn't matter where we worship. So what's he talking about here? This holy mountain. Is he talking about the actual Mount of Jerusalem, where the temple was built? So I'm going to point you guys back remember back to Daniel. I mentioned a few times. Remember the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, and what struck the statue on the feet? You guys remember what that was? A stone, and the stone was a specific type of stone. What type of stone was it? It was cut out with that. Thank you, Melanie, from the peanut gallery. Cut out not with human hands, and this stone strikes the statue on the feet. The statue crumbles and it becomes like dust. But the rock, what happens to that rock? You guys remember? Becomes a mountain and fills the whole earth. So I think that's what he's talking about here. He is talking about the kingdom. It says, Jerusalem will be called the city of truth, and the mountain of the Yahweh of hosts will be called the holy mountain. And I think this is why, because if you keep reading, verse 4, he says, old men and old women will again sit in the streets of Jerusalem, each man with his staff in his hand, because of age, and the streets of the city will be filled with the boys and girls playing in the streets. What does that mean? So you got old people sitting in the streets with their cane, and you got kids playing in the streets. There we go. Peace. If you're being sieged, if there's a threat of war, are the old individuals, are they going to be outside the house where it's potentially dangerous? No. Are you going to let your kids run around outside? No. So in other words, this place is going to be a place of peace. So, verse 6, if it is too difficult in the sight of the remnant of this people in those days, will it also be too difficult in my sight? So he asks, if they think it's going to be too difficult, does that mean it's too difficult for me? Now, obvious answer there is no. It's not going to be too difficult for him. Verse 7, he says, thus says Yahweh of hosts, behold, did you have a comment, Phil? Sorry. He says, thus says Yahweh of hosts, behold, I'm going to save my people from the land of the east and from the land of the west. And I will bring them back, and they will live in the midst of Jerusalem, and they will be my God, and I will be they will be my people, and I will be their God in truth and righteousness. He did finally bring the people back to Jerusalem. That's what we started with in Haggai, right? People were back there, and God was saying, hey, you're back in Jerusalem. You're making your houses pretty. Why aren't you doing anything? Why haven't you finished building the temple? So they're coming back, but verse 9, thus says Yahweh of hosts, I let your hands be strong, you who are listening in these days to these words from the mouth of the prophets, those who spoke on the day that the foundation of the house of Yahweh of hosts was laid, to the end that the temple might be built. For behold, before those days there was no wage for man or any wage for animal, and for him who went out or came in there was no peace because of his enemies. And I set all men one against another. So he's saying, beforehand, things were tough, right? You couldn't go out and get a job. There was danger, but he's about to change that. But he says in verse 11, but now I will not treat the remnant of this people as in the former days, declares Yahweh of hosts. Remember in Haggai, Philip talked about how they would go to the wine vat. I think it was Haggai, was it Amos? Am I getting confused? They go to the wine vat looking for wine and expecting to find a certain amount and find less. Yeah, it was Haggai. They would go get food, expecting to find a certain amount and find less, put holes in their clothes because they weren't taking care of the important things first. But here he's saying, it's not going to be like that anymore. Now I'm going to bless you. You're not going to have these problems. And he says here in verse 12, there will be peace for the seed. The vine will yield its fruit, the land will yield its produce, and the heavens will give their due. And I will cause the remnant of this people to inherit all of these things. Okay, let's see here. Okay, let's go down to verse 16. Actually, verse 15, sorry. So here he says, I have purposed in these days to do good to Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Do not fear. Lost my train of thought. Give me 1 second. Oh, yeah. So in verse 13, he says, you're no longer going to be a curse. Now you're going to be a blessing. He says, beforehand I purposed to do you harm. Now I purpose to do you good. And then twice he tells the people in verse 13 and 15, he tells them, do not fear. Easy statement to make, but why would they be fearful? I mean, he just related to them in the verses before. He says, verse 10, he says, there was no peace because of his enemies, and I set all men one against another. So there was a reason beforehand to be fearful. Now he's telling them, do not be afraid. Let's see here. Verse 16. These are the things which you should do. Speak the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment for peace in your gates. What does this phrase mean where he says, judge with truth and judgment for peace in the gates, or in your gates? What happens if you make unjust judgments? Are you going to have peace if you have unjust judgments? If you let the wicked go free? Margaret?
Things are rough. You, especially if you're a new generation, you've forgotten about God and how good He is and the tender and kindness and all. Everybody's pushing and shoving everybody up. Everybody's got a vendetta. And if you're out in the streets and you're wild or racist to each other, when you do unjust judgment, it makes a hardness within your heart. You want to get even, or if you're a Christian, you're going to turn it over to the Lord. But there's can't think of the word I want to describe it. It makes that bad feeling with you. So you're not going to have peace in the gate because everybody's suspicious of their brother and they're afraid to trust them, probably not knowing anybody they can trust, and there is no peace.
Yeah, if you have unjust rulings, you're going to have basically disarray, and you're not going to have peace because you're not going to know what the standard is. Verse 16 and 17. I started reading verse 16. So verse 17 says, let none of you devise evil in your heart against another, and do not love perjury, for all these are what I hate, declares Yahweh. So it's always interesting to me when a verse says that God hates something or He loves something. So here it says that He hates these things, and Robert earlier was talking about how God hates things. I think Malachi says He hates divorce, but it says, let none of you devise evil in your heart against another. Do not love perjury, that's like false oaths. For all these are what I hate, declares Yahweh. So what's interesting is if you go back to the vision of the scroll, remember what was written on one side of the scroll? Well, there's something written on either side. You remember what they were? Don't steal. What was on the other side?
Don't lie.
Not just don't lie, but don't make a false oath in God's name. So you had there the idea of your relationship with man, and your fellow man, and your relationship that you have with God. And here's the same thing. This relationship with God, he says, do not devise evil in your heart against another, and don't love perjury, making false oaths. So he's discussing the same things here, and he says here that he hates these things. So I used to tell Kelso, actually before I ask that, what do you guys like to do? Like, what do you like to do? And I'm asking literally, like, tell me, what are some things that you like to do and you're like, it really brings joy to you to do these things? Let me give you an example. I'll start. I'm weird. I like working out in large groups of people. For whatever reason, when we're all suffering together, I find it fun. It brings me enjoyment. Whatever. What about you guys? What brings you guys joy? Okay, Margaret's making other people happy. Nobody that likes doing things that bring them joy. Gene? Bike riding, okay. Brings you joy. Anybody else? Reading, okay, yeah, that would be Jaden. Jaden says reading is her favorite sport. She likes reading. Okay, so everyone turn to Jeremiah chapter 9. I want us all to read this. Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 24. Actually, we'll start in verse 23. Thus says Yahweh, let not a wise man boast of his wisdom, and let not the mighty man boast of his might, and let not a rich man boast of his riches. But let him who boasts boast of this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord God who exercises loving kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For in these things I delight, declares the Lord. So, what does it say that God or Yahweh, what does he delight in? What brings him joy? List 3 things. Steadfast love. There's another word for that. You guys know what it is? Loving kindness. Starts with the letter M. Gene's got it. Mercy. Yep. Loving kindness, justice, and righteousness. So mercy, justice, and righteousness. That's what he delights in. That always seems like I would never think like, man, I really enjoyed showing mercy to that guy. I really enjoyed doing the right thing. Sometimes it's difficult doing the right thing. Sometimes I don't want to show mercy. And sometimes I kind of hope the law gets bent a little because this guy didn't really get what he deserved, so I hope somebody else takes it into their own hands, right? But that's not the way God is. God literally delights. He gets joy from engaging in those 3 things, which are contrary to what he says here in verse 17, these things that he hates. Okay. Then the word of Yahweh of hosts came to me, verse 18, sorry. Then the word of Yahweh of hosts came to me, saying, thus says Yahweh of hosts, the fast of the 4th, the fast of the 5th, the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th months will become joy, gladness, and cheerful feasts for the house of Judah. So love, truth, and peace. I'm not going to lie, anytime we start talking about feasts, I'm always like, because the feasts, all the laws when it has to do with feasts, I just can't keep them straight. I'm kind of like Amy. Amy hates it when they talk about geography or anything like that. I'm the way when it comes to these type of things. So when he mentions this, the feast of the 4th, the 5th, the 7th, and the 10th, I'm like, oh my goodness, what is he talking about? Do I need to go back to the Old Testament and try and figure out which was the feast of what were these fasts for? Thankfully, we have Google. And I typed it in, and it gave me the answer right away, and I went, oh, that would have taken me a long time to figure those out, and I probably wouldn't have figured them out, even though I would have read them. So, the 4th month, I would like somebody to open up Jeremiah chapter 52, verse 6. We'll read that in a second. Let me see a hand of somebody who'd like to read that one. Jeremiah 52, verse 6, just so I'm not reading the entire time. Rob. All right, somebody open up Jeremiah chapter 52 and read verses 12 to 13. Matthew, you raise your hand. You can take that one. Thank you. Jeremiah 41, verse 2 and 3. Gene, thank you. And Jeremiah 52, verse 4. Somebody pick that one up for me. 52, verse 4, yes. Not yet. Okay. So thank you very much. So, the 4th month, the feast of the 4th month commemorates the fall of Jerusalem. Robert, go ahead and read Jeremiah 52, verse 6, please.
On the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine was so severe in the city that there was no food for the people of the land.
Thank you. So if you remember, Nebuchadnezzar, he sieged the city in the 9th year of Zerubbabel, and so they were under siege for about a year and a half. Can you imagine that, not leaving for a year and a half? So anyway, the 4th month was when the city fell. Okay, Matthew, Jeremiah 52, verse 12, 13. This was the 5th fast of the 5th month, and this commemorates the destruction of the temple of Solomon's temple.
Day of the month, that is the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the bodyguard who served the king of Babylon, entered Jerusalem. And he burned the house of the Lord and the king's house and all the houses of Jerusalem, every great house burned down.
Thank you. All right, so Gene, I think you had Jeremiah 41, verse 2 and 3. This is the feast of the 7th month, and this one commemorated the assassination of Gedaliah, who I'll mention a little bit more about it here. Go ahead, Gene.
Then of Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, and the 10 men that were with him, and smote Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, with the sword, and slew him, whom the king of Babylon had made governor over the land. Ishmael also slew all the Jews that were with him, even with Gedaliah at Mizpah, and the Chaldeans that were found there, and the men of war.
So if you remember at that point, that was after the city had fallen, the people were deported, but a remnant was left, and so Babylon appointed Gedaliah, who was a Jew, to be governor over the land. Ishmael, who, if I remember correctly, was of royal descent, took it upon himself to kill Gedaliah, and not just Gedaliah, but all the Jews that were with him, and the Babylonian guards that were there. So they killed all of these, and it was at this point that the Jews became really afraid, and they said, basically thought Nebuchadnezzar was going to return, kill all the remnant. So they told Jeremiah, we're going to Egypt. Okay. And who had, Margaret, you had Jeremiah 52, verse 4. That's the 10th month, and that commemorated the siege of Jerusalem. So go ahead.
And in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of the month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came with all of his army against Jerusalem, and laid siege to it, and developed siege works all around it.
So, so that's what these feasts are. That's what these fasts were for. Commemorated when Jerusalem fell, when the first temple was destroyed, when Gedaliah was murdered, and when Jerusalem went under siege. So he says here in verse 18, he says, the fast of the 4th, the fast of the 5th, the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th month will become joy, gladness, and cheerful feasts for the house of Judah, so love, truth, and peace. So in other words, these things that you are mourning about, they're going to be a thing of the past. There'll be no more need to fast over these things because of what you're going to have. And what are we going to have? Let's read verse 20 through 23. He says, thus says Yahweh of hosts, it will yet be that peoples will come, even the inhabitants of many cities. And the inhabitants of one will go to another, saying, let us go at once to entreat the favor of Yahweh and to seek Yahweh of hosts. I will also go. So many peoples and mighty nations will come to seek Yahweh of hosts in Jerusalem and to entreat the favor of Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, in those days 10 men from all the nations will grasp the garment of a Jew, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. So people will come from many cities, mighty nations. They'll come to entreat the favor of Yahweh, to seek Yahweh of hosts. 10 men will grasp the garment of a Jew, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. So if you remember back to, I think it was chapter 3, the vision of Joshua the high priest. So you remember that? We discussed that. Joshua is standing before the angel of the Lord. Standing to Joshua's right is Satan, who's accusing him. Later on in the chapter, they place in front of Joshua a stone with 7 eyes. Remember that? And you're like, a stone with 7 eyes? That's strange. But I think the eyes are there because stones don't live, but if it has eyes, that suggests it's living. There's also 7 eyes on the vision that John the Apostle saw on the lamb. Remember, for the seals, the 7 seals that couldn't be opened. And John starts crying. The angel said, don't worry, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, he's prevailed. He will open he can open the seals. And then when John looks, he sees what looks like a lamb standing as if it had been slaughtered, and it had 7 eyes. But anyways, so you have the stone. I already mentioned earlier today, what does the stone do? The stone that was cut out without hands strikes the feet of the statue, becomes a great mountain. You have this statue that Zechariah sees in this vision. In 1 Peter, we talked about this a few class periods ago, but I was running out of time and I had to rush through it really quickly, and I really want to talk more about it. But in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 5, it says, we'll start in verse 4. And coming to him as to a living stone. Wait, a living stone? Where did we hear that before? Well, the stone that Daniel saw, the stone that Zechariah saw. Coming to him as to a living stone, rejected by men, but choice and precious in the sight of God. You also, as living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house for a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. So here he talks about how how Jesus is as a living stone. So he's not a living stone, but he's like a living stone. And it says that we also are as living stones. We're being built up. So you have the stone that strikes the foot and becomes a large mountain. You have the stone that Zechariah sees with the 7 eyes. You have here in Psalm, Jesus called he's the cornerstone. He's the stone which the builders rejected, but became the chief cornerstone. And you see that we are like living stones, and we are being fit together. And if you look at, and I didn't mean to close 1 Peter, I meant to keep it open, but I forgot. What was the purpose? I'm taking a long time now. Here we go. Why are we being built up as a spiritual house? What does it say there?
Sacrifices acceptable for God through Jesus.
Be a holy priesthood. What do priests do?
People to God.
They represent people to God. And in these verses in the end of Zechariah chapter 8, what are these people doing? These people that are coming to God, why are they coming to him? They're coming to entreat his favor. They're coming to seek him. But then he has this strange comment in verse 23. He says, in those days 10 men from all the nations will grasp the garment of a Jew, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. So is that a literal event? Is there going to be a Jew who 10 people are going to grab him and say, hey, we heard that God's with you, so we're going to go with you? Remember, going again back to Daniel, Daniel chapter 7, which I reference quite frequently and referenced a few class periods ago. But that's where Daniel sees the vision. He sees Jesus ascending and taking the throne. And it says that, that Jesus is given a kingdom of many nations and peoples and tongues. So you got all these people that are going to be God's kingdom. Just like here, he says, many peoples, mighty nations, they're going to come. They're going to come to seek Yahweh. They're going to come to entreat his favor. And they're going to do so by finding themselves a Jew. Are we Jews? Biologically, no. Spiritually, yes. We know that. If you've been buried with Christ, you have been clothed with Christ, and you are descendants of Abraham, heirs according to promise. So we are Jews. And what are we supposed to be? What does Peter say we're supposed to be here? We're supposed to be a holy priesthood. So we should be assisting people in coming to God, coming to Jesus. And we do that by offering up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. So I really am very glad that I accidentally started teaching Zechariah, because I have learned a whole bunch from this class, where I'm sure I would have learned a lot from Zephaniah too, or was it Zephaniah? Malachi. Malachi is what Barry assigned. Philip.
I would just mention that I think this passage builds on the last chapter when the group from Bethel came and said, hey, are we supposed to fast in the fourth one? And then the message came back from God and saying, when you fast on the fourth one and the seventh one, what are you doing that for? You're doing that for yourself, you're doing it for God, and now you build on the fourth and the fifth, the seventh and 10th. And to your point, all that's no longer required. You don't have to fast for that, because if you're following God, these other benefits will come. And I think refers back to what Barry said in Exodus chapter 20 about back in those days, that God is a jealous God, and God will visit punishment on multiple generations, 3 and 4 generations, if you don't do God's will, but He will bless multiple generations if you do. So I think all that is tying in here in this chapter.
Very good. Well, according to my watch, we got 3 minutes early. Any other comments or questions about this? Shelley.
It really stood out to me in verse 23 that he says, "In those days 10 men from the nations of every tongue shall take hold of the robe of Jude." It's interesting because I don't hear the number 10 used a whole lot in the Bible, as much as the number 12 anyways.
Or 7.
Yes, or 7, exactly. I get that it's representing people from all nations, but I was just wondering if it was symbolically also representing the 10 tribes who kind of left and, went up to the maybe northern kingdom of Israel.
I hadn't thought of that before. I mean, it's possible. I think when they use 10, I think the number 10 is kind of like an exaggeration, kind of like when we say, "Oh, there's 1 million people there." Were there really 1 million people there? There weren't really a million people, but we're using it as a. What's that?
They will use a different number, probably.
Yeah. So.
You have tithing is 10%.
Yeah. Seems to be. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know, Shelley.
I think of when I read the whole verse, especially about the from nations of every tongue, it makes me think of Pentecost.
And the fact that when I look around now, I clearly see that there are many nations standing here or sitting here today. We're not all from the same nation. Okay, so I guess we didn't end early, but yeah. So if I could get a volunteer or actually Philip and I could get a volunteer to teach next week. Otherwise. Okay, all right. Well then, next week Barry has graciously agreed to teach for us. It's chapter. It's chapter 9 through 14, right, Philip? No, I think it was 9 through 14 next week. Yeah, chapter 9.
Oh, how good it is when the family of God was together in spirit, in faith and unity, where the bonds of peace, of acceptance and love are the fruit of His presence here among us. So with one voice we'll sing to the Lord, and with one voice we'll lift out His word till the whole earth sees the Redeemer has come, for He dwells in the presence of he dwells in the presence of his people. So with one voice we'll sing to the Lord, and with one voice we'll lift out his word, till the whole earth sees the Redeemer has come, for he dwells in the presence of his people. For he dwells in the presence of his people. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord